Hello, new community. So today we're going to talk about the government. Did you just tense up? If so, relax. We're not getting into all that. We're just talking about some general principles, some biblical principles on how we, as a church, should view and interact with the government. So here we go. So number one, J.I. Packer sees the civil government as a means ordained by God for leading communities. It's just one of a number of such means. Includes the church, parents in the home, teachers in the school, etc. But each of the means has its own sphere of authority that's distinct, but is always under Christ, and that's a really big point. So in our fallen world, these governing structures of authority, they were instituted by God, and what Packer calls God's common grace or kindly providence, standing as a safeguard against anarchy and really the dissolution of ordered society. So based on Romans 13, chapter 13, verses 1 through 7, and 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 13 through 17, the idea is that the sphere of the civil government is that God is the supreme Lord and King of all the world. And then he ordains civil magistrates to be under him and over people for his own glory and, of course, for the public good. And so he's armed them with the power of the sword for the defense and encouragement of good and the punishment of evil. However, of course, that power doesn't extend into the realm of the word or the sacraments. It doesn't include any power concerning the keys of the kingdom of heaven. The idea is that Christians, acknowledge this as a part of God's order, but we understand that civil authorities are not to use their power for, religious persecution of any kind or toward the goal of any form of evil. If it, for instance, were to forbid what God requires or require what God forbids, civil disobedience, with the acceptance of its consequences, becomes inescapable for us. We have a responsibility, we have a call to urge governments to fulfill their proper role and not to fulfill an improper role. We're supposed to pray for, obey, and yet watch over civil governments, reminding them that God ordained them to rule, to protect, and keep order, but not to abuse or misuse that power. In a fallen world, in which power rarely corrupts people, as Americans, we have the democratic system, and it divides the executive power among many, and ideally, makes its holders answerable to the people. But I'm so glad that we have hope. We have hope of avoiding tyranny and, most importantly, securing justice for all.